Hi, Rich. How are you, mate?
I'm good. I'm very
This is
good.
getting to be a regular thing, isn't it, buddy?
Well,
I really enjoy our chats there. It's really good. Thanks so much for rescheduling this, by the way. We were meant to do this last week, weren't they? But I got poorly sick.
yeah, yeah. Let me just change that. Okay. No, well, I hope that this can be a regular monthly thing.
I would love to do that, mate. I really want to bring the podcast back. I want to do more of the podcast. Things have been a bit hectic recently with the live streams down in London and what have you. So I want to get back to the podcast. So yeah, maybe we could do that every 4 6 weeks or so. It'd be
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah. And then for people who are watching this on my channel, because this is going to go on Gordon's channel and also my channel, is I've not been posting every single day like my intention has been because I've been busy with social work. And there's just and also there's so much going on. I don't know which way to turn. Which way?
What do you think? What do you think with this stuff that's going on in Parliament? Then should we start there because obviously that's all
Oh.
anybody's talking about now. Liz Truss has said that she's resigned. What do you think is going on?
Well, we're recording this on Sunday, the 23rd of October in the morning, UK time.
We might
And
have a new prime minister by then.
that's right.
We might have another two. Who knows?
That's right. And I haven't checked the latest this morning, right? But yesterday I recorded a video with Tom Luongo and Alexander Mercouris from the Duran. So people should go check that out on my
People
Odyssey
should
channel.
check the Duran out as well because they are probably the best political commentators I would say in the UK. And that's
I would say Tom Luongo is on a par with them. He brings a different cut to it, in my opinion. So check both of them out. But bit.ly/crypto rich odyssey, you'll find all those videos. It's not going to be on YouTube. And here's what I think is likely to happen.
Go on.
All right. There's one definite outcome. But I think the pathway is so Boris gets enough. I think he's already got 100 MPs.
Yeah. Okay, I'm with you so far.
The red wall Tory MPs are going to back him.
Yeah.
It's going to go to the membership vote. The members are going to back him. And then we could have Boris Johnson as Prime Minister again. Right. Hold on. That's one, right? That's one.
Okay. All right.
Boris and Rishi work something out, and I don't know how that will be, right? And the other one is this: somehow it gets so chaotic and shambolic, the Conservative Party disintegrates. We have calls for a general election that cannot be ignored, and then we have Labour, and then we have Keir Starmer, and whichever way it works out, we have a WEF Prime Minister.
Yeah,
that's what's going to happen.
This is what I think is going to happen. And I'm not great at predicting things, but I think what you said there was right. I think Boris Johnson, he said that he's got the 100 MPs. I think he will get them, and I think he will win the support of the party. That in itself will rip the Tory party apart, and it will be the end of the Tory party. Because what will happen? Remember, this is a prime minister that was ejected from being a prime minister because he was lying to everybody and breaking the rules here, there, and everywhere. He partied all the way down lockdown while everybody else was saying goodbye to couldn't say goodbye to their dying mother or grandmother. He was there partying in Downing Street after making the rules. So what you're going to end up with is probably 100, 120 of those red wall MPs. They're going to say, I've had enough. And they're going to cross the aisle to Labour. That's what I think is going to happen. And then what we're going to happen is sort of like a WEF government. Rather than Labour or Conservative, we're going to have a one government. Like it's sort of, I don't know much about this, but when South Africa fell, they had this one unity government, didn't they?
Yeah.
It's going to be something like that.
But much worse.
That's what I think.
We'll have what they have in Canada with Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh from the opposition party forming a pact together, which is because both are part of the WEF Leaders Program, WEF acolytes, or what we have in France, or what we have in the Netherlands, or what we have in Germany, what we have pretty much in the captured West. We have, or in the US, where you got Biden and rhinos, Republicans in name only.
We're screwed. The people in this country are screwed. We don't get a say in any of this. That's what I'm telling people right now. Yep. Whatever they're planned, we don't get a say at all in any of it. Right now, we're arming Nazis in Ukraine.
Yep.
And they're trying to say to everybody, oh, this is fine. It's like your own reporting 5 minutes ago was calling these people Nazis. Every publication possible, the BBC, the Guardian, the Telegraph, all of them were calling these people in Ukraine, these are the Ukrainian forces in the east of Ukraine, Nazis. Right up until this year, they were calling Ukraine the most corrupt country on the planet. Their own reporting were, and now they're saying, oh, no, we've got to save their democracy, and they're not Nazis at all. Well, which is it? Were you lying back then for all those years, or have you been lying since February? Because they're lying about it. We're arming neo-Nazis in Ukraine, and the reason we're doing it is because America told us to.
Yep. Well, we can talk about, I want to take it back to the UK, right, and stay there for a while, because there's a lot interesting here, which is...
I'm a bit pissed off this morning, mate. I don't know what you noticed. Come on.
Well, it makes for good. So everybody, if you want more pissed offness from Gordon, right, please like and share and subscribe to both our channels. And even if you don't, please like, share, and subscribe to both our channels and comment. The other thing that it's being presented as, when you talk about is it's a Brexit issue, that UK is crumbling because of Brexit. What's not being paid attention to is how the Bank of England attacked the government. Okay, it's not ideal that only a few thousand people voted for Liz Truss and installed her as Prime Minister. But it's even less than ideal that these big money makers, this big, pots and pots of money were used to assault the British government by depressing the pound, selling British gilts. And this is, people talk about because I voted Brexit, as people should know, right? And you didn't.
I didn't know.
You didn't, right? But people talk about one of their anti-Brexit arguments is, it was so they could short the pound. Jacob Rees-Mogg and others and all their friends, they knew it was going to happen. They shorted the pound so they can make money and stuff. That's peanuts. That's absolute peanuts compared to the vast pools of money, the quadrillion dollars in the bond market that are being used to influence governments and buy governments and shape how well governments perform. Because one of the points that Tom Luongo has made, and he made in the video that I recorded with him yesterday, is that Queen Elizabeth dies. You have the two independent banks out in Europe.
Yeah. You have a 5-week funeral first. That's what you have, a 5-week funeral, and then
the 5-week funeral, right? Because we got loads of money to spend on that. But then the two banks that are out in Europe that are outside of the EU system, the major banks, Swiss National Bank and the Bank of England, both get attacked, and the Queen isn't there to defend Britain. And I don't think people really get how much money the Queen holds. Not the Queen, but the Royal Crown, trillions of dollars the Royal Crown holdings have, that she's in charge of, that she can no longer use to preserve Britain's sovereignty.
Well, so why can't the King do that then?
Because he's a WFer. Build Back Better.
So he's going to be,
Charles,
you will eat the bugs.
Charles was the first one to go public with the Build Back Better slogan. He is a WFer.
Really? Okay.
He's into the climate change agenda, right? All that sort of stuff.
Well, I'm into the climate change agenda.
No, but we've had that conversation, and I'm trying to sort you out. If the WEF say it's,
well, you're going to have to sort me out. You're going to have to explain the scientific thing that I explained to you and explain that away, because that's science.
Okay, well, here's science.
Okay.
Here's science, right? So the argument is more carbon dioxide, the Earth gets warmer.
All right. Let's come to that.
Go back to the UK.
All right, because we're talking about the UK government.
All right.
Right. Explain to me this then. Right. Liz Truss. So you know more about financial stuff than me, and I'm a bit of an idiot when it comes to this sort of thing. But Liz Truss, correct me if I'm wrong, the reason that the Bank of England intervened is because she said, I'm going to spend all this money. I'm going to spend all this money giving it to the oil and gas companies to pay for everybody's crap, everybody's fuel over the winter. And we're gonna give all this money to the rich people by knocking the top 10%, the top percent of tax off, and we're going to do all these things. But she didn't balance it on the other end, and that's why it went nuts, right? Because she didn't say, oh, I'm going to either cut taxes, or I'm going to either raise taxes to pay for it, or cut public spending, which is one of the two things we have to do, correct?
Yeah.
And that's why the Bank of England intervened. Here's my question, Rich. Why haven't the Fed intervened then in America? Because isn't this exactly what Biden and America have been doing since 2008?
Sorry, I don't understand the question.
Well, they just spend the money and they just print the money and send it out, and they never cost it. The congressional budget, the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, or whatever, it all comes out. You can't do this because it's just going to raise the debt, and you haven't paid for it. But the debt just keeps going up and 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 up.
Yeah,
but the dollar's still as strong as it pretty much was.
The reason,
and everybody else in the world, all of their currencies are falling, and their APR is, or their interest rates are going through the roof, but America's not. Hasn't she essentially tried to do what America did? Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, yes and no. The dollar has a very different role in the world because it's a world reserve currency, right? Okay. So we can't equate the dollar with the pound in that regard.
So now, the reason
what Truss did, what she proposed, is what Thatcher proposed when Thatcher came in. And you and I are no fans of Thatcher, right? But if you cut the tax burden, the argument goes, you do get people investing. Now, whether she did it the best way or not, I don't know. However, this is why we're told she was attacked. I'm interested in what's going on in the shadows that we're not told. Where are we told, that don't look over here, don't look over there. And she is, as far as I can tell, currently her position is she is pro-Brexit. She's Britain is in a different place in terms of wealth generation to pretty much all the European nations, apart from maybe Norway.
Have you seen?
Oh, can I just?
Sorry, you carry on if you're not finished. Go on.
So, Britain has the ability to produce money, to dig money out of the ground. Now, I'm not talking about fracking. I'm talking about North Sea oil. I'm talking about coal mining. Germany can't do that. Qatar does that. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, Iraq, Iran, they produce money out of the ground in the form of hydrocarbons, coal and oil. One of the things that I think she was going to do was resurrect that. And that's how Britain can get back on its feet. If we don't do that, we're screwed. She is not buying into the climate change agenda. Now, I don't think, right? It's a little bit like, well, let's wait and see. But she's not as captured by the WEF, Davos, as the others are. And that's why they had to get rid of her. We got the Northern Ireland Protocol bill going through Parliament right now. And if that passes, then Britain is fully free.
Yeah.
And what the EU doesn't want, it doesn't want an independent nation, European nation, doing well outside of the EU, outside of its imperial hegemonic control, especially one that's left and one as powerful as Britain.
It's the thread of a good example, isn't it? Because we'll have left. And other countries look at Hungary at the moment. Look at what's going on with the European Union. Now, obviously, there's going to be people in the chat now going, oh, Viktor Orban's bad. Viktor Orban's a right-winger. Really? What do you actually know about him other than what you've heard on the media? Bearing in mind the media lie constantly.
No.
Right? So let's talk about...
I have to stop you there. The media, when they represent people and when they say this person is bad and this person is good or okay, they're always right, because Jeremy Corbyn is bad, Tony Blair is good, Keir Starmer is good.
It is kind of like that. At the moment, they're trying to say that. At the moment, I love the way, especially on the BBC. I heard it this morning. I switched it on for a few minutes, and I heard them say that how this government in Italy is right wing. It's like, you never say it's a right wing conservative government, do you? You never say it's right wing Labour, because that's what it is right now. It's a right wing Labour Party, but you don't say that, do you? You use anyway. Viktor Orban in Hungary, over there in Hungary, whatever it is. So they can't get gas from Russia because Ursula von der Leyen's told them they can't. Ursula von der Leyen, who nobody voted for, and she runs the European Union now. So she's been told. They told Viktor Orban, you can't get your oil and gas from Russia, and he's gone, okay, great. Where do I get it from then? And they've gone, because they can't get it from America. The only place he can get it from is Russia. So what the European Union are telling the leader of Hungary right now is, your people are going to freeze this winter and you're going to thank us for it and like it and not say a goddamn thing. So if we leave, Hungary are going to be like, sod this, we're gone. And then you're going to have Italy going, oh, we've had enough, we're gone. And then France, and then it's just going to knock off like dominoes. So it's like, I remember I said that you said earlier that I voted Remain, and I did. And I just want to explain my reasoning behind that, so people go, "Oh God, this is a Remainer" in the comments. And by the way, for those people who are going, "Oh, Remainer or Brexiteer," stop it. All right, these people are not your enemies. Your enemies are the bastards in power. They're the enemies, not people who voted Brexit or people who voted Remain. All right.
If I can interrupt, right? Do you remember when political discourse engaging with your enemy was like natural?
It wasn't just natural, it was entertaining.
Yes.
Anyway, I voted Remain because I thought you can't have an in-out referendum without first defining what out is. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a load of bureaucratic nonsense and we'll be in the shit for years to come. Look what happened. I was pretty much spot on with that. But since then, I've understood that no, actually leaving was the best thing to do, because I've read articles by people who know this sort of stuff. I take a lot of direction from a guy called Mark Blythe, who is the economic professor at Brown University. Very smart man, Scottish guy. Go and watch him. He predicted Trump, he predicted Brexit, he predicted it all. And what he basically paraphrases is a guy from The Guardian who wrote an article about this before Brexit and said, listen, perhaps it's the best that the UK get out of the European Union before it does go to shit, because it's going to shit. And the reason it's going to shit is simple, because the European Union, if you look at it, just look at what it is and what it does. Don't look at what they say it does, just look at what it is. What it is a way to drive Western European wages down to Eastern European levels so that the EU can compete on the global market with the Chinese. That's essentially what it is, which is great for countries like Britain and for countries like Germany, who export a hell of a lot, and people, and maybe France, that exports a lot. Terrible for pretty much everywhere. Spain, terrible for most of Italy, terrible for countries such as Hungary, etc., etc., etc. So us leaving perhaps is the catalyst that will bring it all down, because it's not fit for purpose. If you look at it, all it's doing is basically just getting few people rich off the backs of Eastern European labor. I mean, I've got my brother, I've spoken to about this on my channel a lot. My brother is a long distance lorry driver, and he's told me in Knowles, by the way, they were treated like shit during COVID, these people that kept the country running. They were treated like shit. And he's told me how I think it was about 10 grand. It was almost 10 grand his license cost, because it's like the top license you can possibly get. He's got a massive refrigerated, articulated lorries that he delivers to all the major food things in the country. It cost him 10 grand. People from Poland, it cost them £100 to get the same license. They literally just jump in the cab and drive around down the road, jump out. And I know I'm going to the nth degree on that, and it's not necessarily that easy. But that's essentially, it's not an even playing field. People here are on a much worse footing than they are in Eastern Europe, who come here and get it, because that's the way it is, unfortunately. And that's just in the trucking industry. It was all over. Now those truckers have gone. So what's happened since those truckers have gone back to Eastern Europe? What's happened to my brother? Well, he had 4 pay rises in 12 months, Rich. 4. Wow. Didn't get a pay rise for 5 years, then got 4 in 12 months. I haven't spoken to him for a while, probably about 6 months. I dare say he's had another 1 or 2 since then, because they've got leverage now, because they've been screwed so much. Now all these truckers have gone, now they've got the power, and it's brilliant. Yeah. So now they can actually leverage and get a wage that they deserve. if you look at the European Union, it stopped all that. In fact, when we were in the European Union, it really caused massive problems in the workforce. And obviously, on top of that, then you get the xenophobia and the racism as well, because they see Eastern European people coming in, or they're taking our jobs, etc., etc., etc. So perhaps leaving the EU was the best thing that we could possibly do. And perhaps the timing was perfect, because you and I both know that there's a crash coming. It's 25 to 11 now. It might happen by the time this goes out. Honestly, it's coming.
Oh man,
when it comes,
there's so much stuff I could tell you about that's going on in the money markets, right? Because that's the sort of stuff that I cover, and money, politics, and crypto, right? But just on the EU, the EU is really good for northern capital.
Yeah,
really, really good. It was a way for Germany, Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg to extract wealth from the southern and Eastern European nations.
Yeah, look at Spain. Look at it's devastated Spain. Look at Greece.
Yep. Now, I voted Brexit for two primary reasons. And I agree with what you said, but I had, I suppose, larger macro reasons for voting for Brexit. One is I listened to Tony Benn about what he's had to say. And
what did he say, mate?
Oh, you can find his stuff on YouTube. It's absolutely
I know. He's
the
probably my favorite politician, to be honest.
He said, whoever you're ruling, you got to ask them these questions. And I can't.
How do we get rid of you?
How can we get rid of you? Who are you
voted for you?
To? That's right. That's right. And the point is, say, with their MPs, anybody who here supports Remain, please answer in the comments below.
Yeah.
If how can a European citizen make a proposal, or sufficient European citizens make a proposal that actually leads to a new bill and a new law within the European Union parliamentary system? There isn't a mechanism. There isn't a mechanism. You could say, well, you could lobby in the UK. You and I can go lobby our MPs. And then an MP can propose a bill through the private members bill, and it may or may not get adopted. There isn't that. An MEP cannot propose legislation, and they cannot veto legislation. The MEP, the elected body, is the secondary body in the European Union. Who makes the laws? Who gets to say what will be debated or not are the non-elected members of the council or the commission. It's so opaque, the structure of it. There is no way of holding the lawmakers to account at the ballot box, just directly by the people. Just like there is no way in Britain to hold the members of the House of Lords directly to account. We cannot do that. It's all mediated through bureaucratic layers that we don't get a say about. And the European Union was designed like that, deliberately designed like that, in order to, it's more like a Politburo. It's not democratic. And then the other thing that people do not know, because we're not taught about money in school. And I've had to teach myself, I'm a social worker, and there's things like the bond market I still don't understand, but I know enough. In 2008, and I might have mentioned this before when we recorded before, I can't remember, right? But it's worth repeating. In 2008, the European Union's financial situation, no, 2014, was so bad that the ECB instigated negative interest rates. Now try and get your head around that. You've got $1 billion, €1 billion, Gordon. You're going to park them in the ECB. Okay. And for parking them in the ECB, because my financial state is so bad, I can't get my head, it's upside down money, negative interest rates. Instead of me paying you, because you've lent me your money, you're going to pay me. What? That's the terrible, terrible, terrible financial condition that the EU is in. And now with the sanctions, the suicidal sanctions against Russia, the EU is punching itself in the face, self-harming. But who are the ones going to be bleeding? Are the ordinary people.
The ordinary people.
They are Germany, France, all of them, they are deindustrializing themselves. Germany and Italy, the major industrial powers, right? How on earth can the Germans or the Italians, I mean, the Germans produce the most revenue for the EU. how on earth can they make any money without cheap energy for their manufacturing goods, their high-end, expensive, important manufacturing industry?
Yeah.
BASF, it's chemical division. How are they going to make anything without gas? How are you going to make fertilizer without gas? How are you going to make, I don't know, factory components or BMWs or Audis without gas, without cheap energy? How are you going to do that? Because renewables aren't going to do it. What you're going to have is the impoverishment of the European Union. And then people are saying, oh, we need to join forces with them. No, what Britain needs to do is to toe an independent line, independent of the Western Anglo nations that are destroying themselves. Canada, the United States, Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. Look at the policies that those governments are carrying out that are impoverishing and starving and poisoning their own peoples versus what's happening in the global south. And that's why I think Liz Truss that's why I think the danger that she represents to the WEF and the EU, and possibly Boris, please, what else can we hope for, right? But the danger that Sunak, that Starmer, Hunt represent is more of what's happening in Europe. What I said in the video yesterday with Tom and don't be offended and shocked, Gordon, you may even agree with me, is I remember the winter of discontent and how awful, awful Margaret Thatcher is. I would please have her back. Please come back. She was a sovereigntist. She wouldn't take this nonsense from the Bank of England. She'd sack the governor.
Yeah, she would.
No, we're independent. We're going to look after our own.
Just to go on what you were talking about there with the EU, it's spot on what you said, and this is why Britain voted to leave. By the way, yes, there was an element of racism in there and xenophobia, etc.
That's overplayed,
but that's just people,
completely overplayed.
Because the overriding feeling in the British public was this: it was a revolt against technocracy. It was a revolt against unelected, powerful elites who you literally could not get rid of. Yeah, and that's what it was. Remember, these are people, right? These are people that are all throughout all. And I'm going to paraphrase Mark Blythe again here when he's talking about America. But you could say the same thing about Britain. It's like when this globalism and this neoliberalism came in with Thatcher and whatever, it was like, it's all right, we're okay. We're not going to have a manufacturing industry over here anymore. That's all going to go to India and places like that where we can do it cheaper, and that's going to bring the cost down. It's going to be wonderful. What we're going to do with you is you're all going to be computer programmers and computer scientists and fantastic. It's going to all be like that. It's going to all work out fantastic. So people went, oh, okay, that's great then. Now, what they ended up having is there were no computer jobs. There weren't rocket scientists or anything like that. What they ended up doing is taking 3 jobs in the gig economy to survive. That's what ended up happening. This was a revolt against technocracy. You can't treat your workforce like they were treated over the last 20, 30, 40 years of neoliberalism. It was destined to fail. And here we are. You talked about Liz Truss. Have you seen the video by Led by Donkeys, mate?
Is it a 10-minute video?
It is.
I haven't.
It's 8 minutes long.
Okay, well, link it below. I haven't seen it.
I mean, I could show it here, but I mean, if you want, you could clip it in. But it's 8 minutes long. And
This is 55 Tufton Street in London. You may have heard of it, or maybe not. It's not your average address, because from the moment Liz Truss took over as Prime Minister, Britain was, in a sense, being run from this building. It's home to a group of lobbying organisations that for years have pushed an extreme economic ideology, free market fundamentalism. Their hostile to regulations that protect the environment and workers' rights. They think companies owe a duty only to their shareholders and not to society more generally. They don't like the NHS or the social safety net and instead think the market can solve every issue. In short, they believe the market is God. And when Truss moved into number 10, that ideology became government policy. Policy like the disastrous mini-budget that crashed the pound, raised mortgage repayments and dramatically hiked the cost of government borrowing, making most of us poorer and necessitating a series of humiliating government U-turns. Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng are very familiar with this black door. One leading Conservative commentator, Tim Montgomery, has even said the PM and her short-lived Chancellor were incubated by one of the lobbying groups clustered around this building. So, what organisations are we talking about? Well, they often have innocuous-sounding names that cloak their fundamentalist agendas. For starters, there's the Taxpayers Alliance and the Global Warming Policy Foundation. Next door is the Centre for Policy Studies, and just around the corner from here are the Adam Smith Institute and the Institute of Economic Affairs. The Tufton Street network comprises a tiny group of people relative to the rest of us, but aided by secretive donations, they exercise a reach and influence that far outweighs their numbers, and one of them has just become Prime Minister. When she entered number 10, she opened the door to an army of Tufton Street ideologues. She made this guy her chief economic advisor. He's Matthew Sinclair, and he's the former head of the Taxpayers Alliance, based here. After delivering his mini-budget, Kwarteng was pictured celebrating with him. Truss's interim press secretary, Alex Wilde, was research director at the Taxpayers Alliance. Her health advisor, Caroline Elson, was senior researcher at the Centre for Policy Studies. Truss made this woman her senior special advisor. She's Ruth Porter, former communications director at the Institute of Economic Affairs. While this guy, Julian Jessup, is one of her main advisors on the economy. He's also a fellow at the Institute of Economic Affairs. In fact, every time Truss has got a new government job, she's recruited her advisors from the Tufton Street network. It's just that this time her new job is being Prime Minister. According to the head of the Institute of Economic Affairs, Truss has spoken at more of its events than any other politician over the past 12 years. 2 of Truss's meetings with the organisation were deleted from the official record, then reinstated after the deletions caused a scandal. In 2011, Truss was the supposed founder of a Conservative Party organisation called the Free Enterprise Group. The organisation's webpage was registered by Ruth Porter, who at the time worked for the IEA. The IEA supplied Truss's group with media briefings and organised events for her. 12 members of the current cabinet, including several of its most senior figures, belong to that group. Today, if you try to open its webpage, you're redirected to something called the Free Market Forum, which calls itself a project of the Institute of Economic Affairs. That same year, 2011, Truss teamed up with 4 MPs from her IEA-affiliated Free Enterprise Group, including Kwarteng, to write a book called Britannia Unchained. In it, they said the British are among the worst idlers in the world, and laid out an ideology of tax cuts for the wealthy, gutted workers' rights, and funding cuts for public services. In other words, the Tufton Street agenda. What else do the people in and around this building believe in? In February of this year, King's College London hosted a debate on the motion, should the NHS be privatised? Speaking in favour of the motion was Christian Niemitz from the Institute of Economic Affairs. The Global Warming Policy Foundation, based here, has been described as the UK's most prominent source of climate change denial. The group has previously been found to have spread misinformation about the science of global warming. Truss's pledge to end the ban on fracking was lobbied for by the Adam Smith Institute, where her longest-serving special advisor previously worked. Then we get to Kwasi Kwarteng's recent mini-budget. The policies he announced were vastly more beneficial to the richest in society than any other group. They handed £1 billion a year to just 2,500 multi-millionaires. From the cut in corporation tax to the cut in the highest rate of income tax, it was a budget that could have been written in this building. In fact, it kind of was. Because here's how the Tufton Street network reacted. The Taxpayers Alliance boasted that multiple measures in the mini-budget were policy wins for them, including the abolition of the 45p tax rate. The Centre for Policy Studies boasted that they bagged 7 campaign wins with Kwarteng's budget. The Adam Smith Institute said so many of Kwarteng's proposals were things they'd advocated for. While the head of the Institute of Economic Affairs responded to the claim that Truss was incubated there, and that Britain was now the IEA's laboratory, by posting a self-important sunglasses emoji. The mini-budget was, by their own admission, very much the work of these campaign groups, which begs the question, who funds these groups? In the main, we don't know, and they won't tell us. We do know the IEA has received donations from BP and ExxonMobil and, along with the Adam Smith Institute and the Centre for Policy Studies, from the tobacco industry. The IEA and the Adam Smith Institute have also received millions of dollars from American groups that also funded climate change denial. But in general, we simply don't know who paid for the campaign to have the British government adopt a form of fundamentalist, extreme free market ideology. And of course, it all happened without the inconvenience of asking the voters if they had an opinion on all this. Truss was elected by just 0.1% of the British public, those Conservative Party members who supported her. When one journalist asked if Liz Truss has handed power over to these so-called think tanks, he received a one-word reply from the head of public policy at the Institute of Economic Affairs. That word was yes. For decades, these groups have been claiming that they have all the answers, that if only we'd listen to them and do what they want, then they could perform an economic miracle. When Liz Truss took power, so did they, and it took them just 3 weeks to crash the economy and destroy a Conservative Prime Minister.
It shows why Liz Truss did what she did, right? And who, the people who were advising Liz Truss. The people who were advising Liz Truss all came from this think tank that she gets all her staff from. Mm-hmm. And this think tank it's staffed by rich idiots, basically, who have been pushing her and Kwarteng to do certain things. They pushed her to do certain things and made a fortune shorting the pound. These same people did, these hedge fund managers and what have you. But the thing is, the people in this, I've forgotten the name of this think tank that she gets all her staff from, or have you, and that basically pushed her to doing these policies. The problem is, the people in this think tank, they're not the ones running it. The people in the think tank are being funded by dark money that's coming in, and we don't know where that's coming from. We don't know who it is. This could be economic warfare from another frigging country. It could be oligarchs elsewhere in the world, for all we know. And Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng went along with it.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure whether she was some Thatcher. What if you watch the video Led by Donkeys and you actually, start thinking about it? What I started thinking was this. I had a conversation with the Mrs. Rich, and I'll tell you straight. I say, if this happened in China, Liz Truss would be taken into a field and shot in the back of the head.
Okay.
That's what if you watch the video Led by Donkeys, you can see there is major corruption here. It's not just Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng.
Absolutely.
Of course, they're all the same.
Yeah, they're all front people. Even Klaus Schwab is a front, because what's in the background is BlackRock and Vanguard, and who knows what's in the background of them, who owns BlackRock and Vanguard. And we're talking about, well, also the 300 odd families that are supposed to be running the world and everything, right?
Yeah, and these are the people that are basically funding this think tank that have basically been, well, they've been grooming Liz Truss for the last 10 years. This is why with a politician, you don't get a direct answer from them. You can ask them something and they'll talk about something else. And the reason being is because they know if they talk a certain way and if they talk sensible, they're going to be pissing off the people who fund them. And that's all it comes to. This is why it's so easy to show these politicians as hypocritical on one thing. You just say, well, you're doing the opposite thing elsewhere. What is that? And they'll just go, well, what I'm saying is blah, 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 blah. It's just nonsense. We've got to get rid of it.
And then what happens is we are not any alternative that we want to choose, like the demos, the people. is denied us because there are people like Trump, like Orban, like Maloney, like Corbyn that can appeal directly to people that what the mainstream media, the captured media owned by BlackRock and Vanguard, right, and God knows what else, right? They then present these people. Orban's a right-winger racist. Trump is a right-wing racist. Maloney is the daughter of Mussolini, right? They can't say that about Corbyn. Try to say that Corbyn is a right-winger. Yeah, right, that'll fly. But no, he hates Jews. What?
Yeah, it's much easier to call him a racist.
What the, yeah. He's anti-Semitic, and the Labour Party is riddled with anti-Semitism. So then, and now, I'm not saying Orban, Trump, and Maloney, and Corbyn, and Salvini, right, are the answer, but with the exception of Corbyn, they're all painted as right-wingers. And then what happens? You know what happens? What's happened to me, Gordon? I am apparently a white supremacist, xenophobic, Trump-tard, anti-vaxxer, climate change denier, conspiracy
White
theorist.
supremacist, you've got
Pakistani
heritage, haven't you?
I know. It's crazy, right? Because I would much rather Trump than Biden. I would much rather, and because, you know, was it? Did I tell you about Linton and News? What was happening in Linton and News? Did we mention that in the last video?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. So it's not happening anymore. It's not happening anymore, right? It didn't go through.
What's that? Sorry.
Little village outside York.
Right.
700 people live there. And imagine like an old traditional English village, leafy countryside, probably as old as the Doomsday Book and everything. And York is beautiful, former capital of England, right? Beautiful, beautiful, right? Boris Johnson, in a Tory constituency, Linton News, Boris Johnson's government was going to deposit 1,500 single men from Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria in Linton News. I found out, looking through my Twitter feed, there was a meeting in the church and the locals were up in arms.
That's messed up.
I was like,
That's
oh my
not
God.
the way to do integration.
I would have been, if I was local, I would have been at that Sunday meeting, standing shoulder to shoulder with BNP and UKIP, right? Yeah. You can't deposit 1,500 men.
Not in the same place
single
like
men
that. No,
in a
can't.
little village like that. Okay, spread them about to Glasgow and Birmingham and London and Manchester or whatever, right? Where there's mosques, where there's facilities. What are 1,500 single men going to do in a bloody Tory constituency? And my point here is, Thatcher would not have done that. We have fake conservatives. It fits in with the WEF because they're promoting mass immigration in the United States, in Europe. The Ukraine war serves that. In Britain, because it destroys local cultures. It destroys the ties that bind. It destroys our ties to religion and everything that keeps us together.
Okay. Couple of things. You can't, I mean, it's not that I don't want those people in this country welcome, you know. Yeah. We've been bombing your country for years. Come over here. You're not going to get bombed over here. You're not going to be a victim of UK foreign policy over here, are you? That, you know, the way China do it is, however the makeup of the country is, whether it be, you know, 70% Chinese, 10% Muslim, 10%, whatever it is, when they do their social housing, the housing is made up. They put the people in the houses from the same demographic as the entire country. So it'll be 70%. Like if the demographic of China, it's 1.6 billion people, is like 80% Chinese, 10% Christian, 10% Muslim, blah 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 blah. That's their social housing will be made up of that same demographic. So you get more integration. Then it's much easier for people to integrate. I come from the Midlands, mate. I look out the window and white, Pakistani, Indian, Romanian, Polish, black. We don't see colour up here. You know, we're all Midlanders. You've got black people with a Dudley accent like that. You know what I mean? It's like we've been over here for decades. We're fully integrated. You know, the other thing is the mass immigration that you mentioned. This is going to happen whether you like it or not, mate. Mm-hmm. This mass immigration is going to happen. What should we tell those countries? No, you can't come in. We've been bombing them for ages, and we've been sanctioning them for as far as I can remember. we're going to say, no, you can't come in. Your country's on fire now because of climate change, etc. You can't come in. What do we say to them?
Okay.
We've got to have some sort of mechanism, haven't we?
Sure. We've got to have some sort of mechanism, right? Now, there's the immigration caused by the destruction of Syria and Afghanistan and Libya and Iraq. And you and I were both opposed to that. However, my argument is the WEF are taking it to a whole other level. The war in Ukraine did not need to happen. No. And you mentioned the Azov Nazis earlier on, right? Well, I don't know if people know, but when Ukraine was liberated by the Soviet Union at the end of the Second World War, the Allied forces made sure that the Azov Nazis, the Banderistas, after Stefan Bandera, were not destroyed because they wanted to use them as the bulwark against the Soviet Union. Because the Banderas are vehemently anti-Russia-phobic.
This is the guy they were singing songs about, wasn't it?
Sorry,
I saw a video of them singing songs about these Banderas. They love him.
So it's not like they're a minority group or anything like that, right? It's an established thread throughout Ukrainian society and Ukrainian polity. Now, because of the war in Ukraine, and for 8 years, the Russians were trying to negotiate with the West, with NATO, with the EU, with Germany and France.
Yeah, Rich, can you see this? Oops. Can you see this? Can you see the screen?
I can see it maximum. Yeah. Are you're gonna play a Nazi ode, are you? Can you imagine?
There's no Nazis in Ukraine there.
Yeah, can you imagine a British soldiers being allowed to do that, get away with it?
Yeah, can you imagine that? So British soldiers singing songs to Hitler?
Yeah.
It's the equivalent. But
yeah.
I'm not saying that all Ukrainians are Nazis. That's stupid.
No. But there is.
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is there's a large contingent of neo-Nazis over there, and we've been funding them for this proxy war in Russia, because ultimately the goal, I'm going to share this again, just in case people haven't seen this, right? This is, well, somebody I've been fighting to get free for years. Let me see if I can share screen again. Oh, this is pretty good. This is Rich, the way we can do this. So this is, if all you've got, this is Julian Assange talking about Afghanistan. Replace Afghanistan with Ukraine here. Same thing. Listen.
Because the goal is not to completely subjugate Afghanistan. The goal is to use Afghanistan to wash money out of the tax bases of the United States, out of the tax bases of European countries, through Afghanistan, and back into the hands of a transnational security entity. That is the goal, i.e. the goal is to have an endless war, not a successful war.
And that is the aim in Ukraine. It's not a successful war. Ukraine is not going to beat Russia, okay? Stop talking nonsense. They're not going to win here. Russia is a superpower with more nuclear weapons than anybody on the planet. It could, it doesn't need to use nukes, by the way. It could flatten Ukraine anytime it wants. You're seeing recently, they've gone easy on Ukraine because they know the West is watching, and they know the West will lie about war crimes, let alone, you know, they're just waiting for them to happen. So Russia's gone easy, but with the attacks on the bridge and whatever, Russia said, And at any time, you could just knock out the electrical grid, and all of a sudden, where's the Ukrainian people going to feed themselves? There's talk that they're going to do this dam. That means water isn't going to. This is what they could do to Ukraine at any time. But they know the world is watching, and they also know that the aim here is not for Ukraine to win. Ukraine is not going to beat Russia. The aim is an endless war to destabilize Russia. Why? Because they want Russia's resources. If you actually look at the situation, and I've done a video about this recently, the United States is running out of oil. It is the largest producer of oil on the planet, but it still can't produce. It only produces, I think, 58% of what it needs on a basis. It imports some from Canada, but there's a large shortfall of oil there for America. Where's it going to get it from? It can't get it from Venezuela anymore. Why? Because it's tried coups in Venezuela for the last 20 odd years, even held Chavez at gunpoint. They've tried ousting Maduro in a coup. They've tried, you know, declaring Juan Guaido president of Venezuela. Venezuela will just turn around to America like they have done recently and go, you. No chance. You are not getting our oil. So that's out. Saudi Arabia, well, we know what's happened to them after Khashoggi. They're now actually talking about joining BRICS. Okay, so that's a real Saudi Arabia has gone. And then you look at, okay, who else has got oil? Well, Iran. Well, they've been trying to sanction Iran up the wazoo, trying to crush their economy for years. Do you think Iran are suddenly going to say, okay, America, we'll start dealing with you? Of course not. They're now joining in with Russia and China, and Russia have now done a deal with Turkey for the pipeline to go through Turkey into the Middle East to the poorer countries, to build up the poorer countries. So all of these, where can America go now for its oil? It's got a massive shortage, and nobody uses oil like America does. It's got over 1,000 military. It's got 750 military bases around the world that it cops to. It's got over 1,000 if you include the black sites. If you're running out of oil, how can you keep that going? And if the dollar, as we think, is about to lose its status as the world's reserve currency, when that happens and it loses 2/3 of its value, which is what Chris Hedges thinks, and I tend to go with what he thinks because he's a very smart man, how are they going to actually keep those bases going? How are they going to keep the flow of oil going? They won't. So they will lose their hegemony. What's happening now, you're seeing with Nord Stream 2, and we all know who bombed Nord Stream 2 and put a big hole in it, and it wasn't Russia. You don't key your own car, let alone blow up your own pipeline.
The Swedes wouldn't let Russia join in the investigation, and they're not going to release the details.
And by the way, Germany came out just the other day. I did a video about this and said they cannot release the information with regards to who they know now blew up, because it would affect national security. In other words, if we tell the world America did this and we can prove it, America will crush us.
People will crush us.
They have already blew up the pipeline, meaning thousands, and I mean thousands. Just think about this. America blew up that pipeline. I'm telling you straight, America did it. All right? They blew it up knowing that more people will die this winter. Way more people will die in Europe this winter than died in the Twin Towers on 9/11. I guarantee you that. America killed more people by bombing that pipeline than the hijackers did by throwing those planes into that building that fell down that you have a gangbang every year over. Where's your thought for the 40,000 people who die every year because they haven't got healthcare, a standard living of healthcare? You don't have a memorial for them every year. 45,000 every year die. But no, these 2,000-3,000 people, and I'm awful, terrible what happened to them, terrible. What I'm pointing out is you just murdered more Europeans. You just made sure more Europeans died than in those Twin Towers, and you did it like that, and you didn't give it a second thought. And then you came out and said, well, this is a great opportunity for the world to change the way it's doing. This is a fascist organization. You have to go. You have to leave. Go away, America. Go away. I cannot wait for the dollar to lose its value. I can't wait. I'm going to go out and get a bottle of champagne and get pissed as a fart when it happens, I swear. This is an evil organization that is doing wrong around the world, and the people in that country need to stand up and stop it before millions die. They are holding the world to ransom right now. They are saying we are about to lose our hegemony over the world.
Gordon, we're going to do that. If the US,
we're going to blow the world up. We're going to nuke the world.
My argument is that it's not the US. It's like the people in the background pulling the strings. It's the WEF and their agenda, and the people, the funders of the WEF, the dark money in the shadows that we don't get to see, for whom Klaus Schwab is the front man. Because the point about, I agree with everything you're saying about the Nazis and the Nord Stream and stuff, but what it does, it creates chaos. They want to set the US and Russia in a war against each other, and US against China, and Europe picks up the spoils because Europe is broke. It has no way of generating income apart from Norway and Britain by digging money out of the ground in the form of hydrocarbons, right? Now, the point I was making about the immigration is what's happened with the Ukraine war is you've had millions of Ukrainians, many of them with Nazi sentiments, flooding into Germany, flooding into Poland. And many of these Nazis were anti-Poles. They hate Poles. Yeah. So now you've got this hostile culture, these hostile people that you're hosting. placing a demand on local services and everything, placing an infrastructure and stuff. And then what you've got is the fabric of Polish society weakening, the ties that bind. It's the ultimate divide and rule. It goes into the same thing with the trans agenda. It has people fighting each other, where women are fighting women, are fighting men dressed as women, right? We have the trans culture also attacks the family, because now children, it's increasing in the US, children get to say, oh, you're 5 years old, right? Well, you can't drive a car, you can't open a bank account, but you get to say whether you're a boy or a girl, which also weakens religious ties. All the ultimate divide and rule, all the way down to the very intimate ties that bind us as human beings, that keep a society coherent. And that's the issue with uncontrolled mass immigration like this. I'm a Muslim. I oppose the Iraq war, the Libya war, the Afghanistan war, the Syrian war, right? I went on demonstrations. I don't want 1,500 single Muslim men living in an English village.
You can't do that.
No, because I'm for all people. I'm for all people. That doesn't serve anybody.
Yeah, these are different cultures that need integration. It does. It took years for to integrate every sort of category of immigrant in this country. I mean, look at what we did to the Windrush generation. We're still kicking them home. Now it's awful. But you're absolutely right. That you can't just drop 1,500
the thing is,
men
from a left-wing
in a little village.
From a left-wing perspective, it doesn't serve labor. It serves capital. And Tony Benn has made this point, and George Galloway's made this point, that you can't having lots and lots and lots of people coming into a country reduces wage costs for business.
Uncontrolled immigration is a bad thing. Look at history.
Look at you. You've become a xenophobe just like me, a white supremacist xenophobe just like me.
No, I'm going off history, mate. Whenever there's been uncontrolled mass immigration, there's been massive problems. You can't do that. You can't take 100 lions from Africa and then, and I'm not, by the way, calling people lions. I'm going to just
you're talking about lions,
like 100 animals right? From its habitat, and then put it in the Highlands of Scotland and affect it to be a smooth transition to where they're living. This is a different culture. These lions will rip your head off. I'm not saying they're lions.
They'll destroy the local deer population. There'll be no deer left. And
that's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, but the point is, you and I and those that question this prevailing and growing orthodoxy, like Trump, are painted as racist. I understand, I may be wrong here with the figures, right? But under Biden, he stopped the war and everything. 4 million people, illegal immigrants, have entered the United States. Now that just places a demand on local services. You have higher rates of crime, higher poverty. Local infrastructure can't
He's
cope.
kicking more people out the country than Trump did, Biden is.
That I didn't know. And I'm not so sure where that
he's kicking more people out the country than Trump did. Biden is. I know that for a fact.
Okay, well, I'd be interested in your source for that. Put it in the description below.
Yeah, I'll try and find that for the next time we talk, because it is a big deal, and I know my friends in America talk about it incessantly, and they've never led me astray before.
One of the things that the Democrats may do, because we got the midterms coming up November the 8th.
He's going to get wiped out. The Democrats are going to get wiped out.
Well, no, he could. What things he might do is, by executive order, allow illegal, undocumented immigrants to vote.
I don't think he will. I don't think he will.
What's happening?
He's got a bigger problem than that at the moment. Biden has. He's got a bigger problem. His big problem at the moment is oil, and the reason is obviously OPEC Plus have dropped their oil consumption by 2 million barrels a day, or 2 million barrels a day, and they've dropped it. And Biden threatened Saudi Arabia. He said, basically, don't do this. Don't. He basically said this is what Saudi Arabia is saying, by the way. They've released a letter about it. They've said that Biden basically threatened them to report that they were dropping oil consumption after the midterms. They said hold off a month, and the reason being is dropping the oil production raises the price. high oil prices are bad for American presidents, really bad. They're running out of oil, right?
He's draining the strategic reserve.
Yeah, and he's got the strategic petroleum reserve. So what he's having to do is just yesterday, he released 50 million barrels of oil, 50 million, to keep the price low. It's not because there's a shortage so much, but he's got to keep the price low, because if he doesn't keep, so they've got no oil. Yeah, they're running out of oil. They can't get it from anywhere. The stuff that's under their ground is the shale oil, which is really bad for the environment. You can't be getting that out while you're saying, oh, we're greeny and we're going to do everything renewable. And
they're not green. They're bombing other countries.
Exactly. They've got the worst their military is the worst polluter on the planet, something Greta Thunberg doesn't understand somehow. She never mentions it. Needs to go back to school, Greta, if you can't figure that out. You know what I mean?
And just on all those people supporting the Ukraine-Russian war that we have to win, we have to send our money and our weapons to Ukraine and support them in this futile battle against Russia, and not use that money for looking after our own. And all those who are for, there also happen to be for the climate change agenda, completely ignore, I think, the environmental damage of war.
I totally agree. I totally agree with you. And just to complete what I was saying, Biden, he's going to have to release even more oil, I reckon, over the next couple of weeks to keep the price low. That's the problem he's got. And even if he does that, he's going to get they're going to get wiped out. The Democrats are, and when the Democrats get wiped out, and you end up getting 53, 55 Republican senators, and they get the House as well, they're going to impeach him.
Impeachment.
They're going to impeach him. They're going to say, you did it to Trump twice. We're going to impeach you. Your son.
And we have grounds
for what he's done in Ukraine and
the laptop. The laptop. Let's have a look at the laptop.
In China and hold 10 for the big guy. It's done for.
Yeah, there is definite. That's so crazy, right? There is definite corruption with regards to Joe Biden, right? And,
without a doubt, this guy is corrupt. Not just Joe Biden, by the way. They all are. Nancy Pelosi. Do you know Nancy Pelosi's son? Right? He was in. By the way, he was in Ukraine on television in Ukraine, saying, "I'm here to talk about soccer." What does Nancy Pelosi's son know about football? But they were all over there. They were all making their money. They were all sucking it dry of its reasons. This is what they do. Nancy Pelosi's son is better at trading stocks than both Warren Buffett and Bill Gates combined. Wow. Both of these geniuses, he pisses all over them, Nancy Pelosi's son does. How's that? How is it that Nancy Pelosi is 100 millionaire? How can that be? She's a politician. How can her son be better at picking stocks than Warren Buffett? How can... Something's going on here, isn't it? They're getting some insider information and they're trading, aren't they? This is what they're doing. And that's what's happening. It's not just Biden. They are all corrupt, all of them. And right now, they're the people who are telling the world what needs to be done and where. And if you don't do it, we'll bomb the crap out of you.
Yeah. Now, here's the paradox. Trump has been so investigated over so many years, you know, with the FBI and who knows what going through his life with a fine-tooth comb. And what have they come up with? Zip. Meanwhile, Hunter Biden's laptop is available on Telegram and other websites, and you can actually look through the contents, and it is horrific.
It's hideous.
It's absolutely horrific.
His own family were accusing him of inappropriate touching of his niece. His own family. Yeah. Well, in text messages.
This bit is going to be on. I'm going to pause for a bit, so you might want to cut this bit out, right? This will be on.
Sorry, let it go.
Hunter Biden is a pedophile. Joe Biden is a pedophile. And I'm saying that as a child protection social worker who's trained and experienced in looking out for the signs.
You can say your opinion, mate. There's nothing wrong with saying your opinion.
Say that, in my opinion, right? And there's a certain person who's in, well, they've got a new job now, and they were very close friends with Jimmy Savile and other notorious pedophiles.
Who's that?
Well, somebody died recently. Somebody very, very well known died recently and had to be, and her role was replaced by somebody else who's now got
talking about which,
you know,
yeah. He was a close confidant of Jimmy Savile, wasn't he, the King? They wrote letters to each other.
Jimmy Savile acted as a go-between between him and Diana.
Prince Charles opened up when Jimmy Savile did all that fundraising, all that running, and that money for Stoke Mandeville Hospital. It was Prince Charles that opened it for him, wasn't it?
Yep. And now I wonder what sort of person, and the security services know about Jimmy Savile. I knew about Jimmy Savile when I was 19.
I remember you saying that.
Yeah. So what sort of person hangs out with a known notorious paedophile?
My mom knew he was a paedophile back then. There's Jimmy's what's his name? What's the comedian? Mickey Flanagan, didn't go out, I went out. That guy. He does a sketch once saying, my mom knew he was a pedo. She'd come in and go, look at him, they're nonce. My mom was the same. She was exactly the same. Look at the way he's grabbing those girls. He's a paedophile. He's something wrong. My stepfather was like, oh, don't be silly. He raises all this money for charity. He's a wonderful man. She was like, he's a pedo. And then,
what kind of person uses a paedophile to act as a go-between when they're separating from their partner?
Is that what he did? What with Princess Diana?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
What kind of person in positions in a very, very powerful, influential position doesn't shop the paedophile? Why wouldn't they do that? What kind of person says it's okay for this notorious known paedophile to be given a knighthood?
It's there's a rot running through the United Kingdom.
There's
a rot
running through
that needs grabbing and ripping out root and stem.
Yeah, the elites got to elite, Gordon. It's what they always do. In the history books, reading about all the intrigues between, King Henry and his millions of wives and this king and that king and all of that, right? We're living through it now. This is what it's like. We don't have kings. We have pseudo-democratic monarchs. We have oligarchs in the background pulling the strings. And what we have in the West is an oligarchy. Because the oligarchs, like Gates, like Soros, like those that are funding the WEF, those that own Vanguard and BlackRock, which, by the way, is on its way out, they're the ones pulling the strings, running the show. And we just have, the pretenders at the front, the puppets.
Do you think Trump is a good guy then? You've mentioned him a couple of times in glowing terms here. Do you think he's...
So politically, I am not for Trump, right? In terms of where he's on the political spectrum. Here's what I do appreciate about Trump. He's the first president since Carter not to start a new war. On every speech.
Wrong. It's wrong.
He didn't start a new war.
Mate, he murdered Soleimani and Iran put the flag up. That's a global war from Iran.
No.
He murdered Soleimani. You can't say he didn't start a war. He murdered Soleimani.
Let me make it clear what I mean.
Over Iran.
What I mean, listen, he bombed in Syria. He's occupying Syria. He approved the Israeli plan, which would have turned Palestine into separate Bantustans. He funded Saudi Arabia and supported their genocide of Yemen. What he didn't do is anything like, you're right, he murdered Soleimani. What he didn't do is anything like that Nobel Peace Prize silver-tongued murderer Obama. Libya, Syria, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, Somalia, Uganda.
Drop the Moab. Increased drones. Obama's drone strikes, remember, were off the chart, and he increased them. He's not a peaceful person, Trump is. And by the way,
hold on. He didn't start a new war.
Okay.
Right? The first president since Carter. Carter wasn't perfect either.
No, right? Totally. Right? I agree.
But that I appreciate. There was a line, a thread running through the bushes, Clinton, Obama. He broke that thread. That's what I appreciate. The other thing that I appreciate is he's incredibly popular amongst the Americans. Whether I agree with him or not, he's incredibly, incredibly popular. And the other thing that I have as a rule of thumb, the mainstream media don't like him and the WEF don't like him. The ruling class don't like him. They don't like, he's a sovereigntist. Make America great again. Great, good for you, right? Putin, sovereigntist. Orban, sovereigntist. Corbyn, a sovereigntist. Farage, a sovereigntist. Salvini, Maloney, a sovereigntist. So he's anti the globalist WEF vision. That counts as a lot for me, because he's actually he's out to look after his own.
If he's against the globalist vision, Rich, right? And please don't think I'm having a go or anything like this. And this is just two people talking, and this is just me coming from my feeling on Trump is this: he's one of them. It's a big club. He's in it. You and I aren't.
Yep, we're not. We're definitely not.
You say that I admit, I will concede to you totally, even though I said he dropped the Moab and he killed Soleimani, murdered him and what have you, but his instinct was anti-war. I will give you that.
All his rallies, his stump speeches, we have to have peace. He's the, who else is saying that?
Okay, so if he wants peace,
Putin is saying that.
If he wants peace, right? If he wants peace, why did he go after Assange?
Here's what I don't know. I don't know.
Exactly. It makes, and this is why I say he's one of them. The only reason they don't like him is they can't.
Let me answer that. Here's what I think. What happened with him is similar to what's happened with Corbyn, similar to what happened to Salvini in Italy, which is that the established mechanisms of power and control captured and controlled him. There was a coup within the Labour Party by the Blairites to get rid of Corbyn, to get rid of his advisor, I forget his advisor's name, to move him away, to isolate Corbyn. Corbyn wasn't great at that game. The deep state in the United States, they gave him Bolton, for crying out loud. They gave him Pompeo. They gave him all the others. They attacked those that were his legitimate supporters, like Michael Flynn. Trump himself, they're still out to get him. They are still out to get him. He is not lauded the way that Tony Blair is. The crimes of Tony Blair
he is
are
not
completely ignored. Tony Blair is completely captured and owned by the WEF. Trump, when he was president, he actually respected the Constitution when it came to the COVID lockdown. He wasn't out to mandate the injections. He didn't try and mandate lockdowns from a federal state at the federal level, like Biden has done. He said to the states, you sort it out, which is consistent with the structure of the US administration. It is for the states to decide how they're going to manage themselves in pretty much just about everything. Biden hasn't done that. Biden's been issuing executive orders, and then losing in the courts. Trump isn't ideal. I don't agree with everything.
Mate, he's one of them. He employed Bill Barr as his attorney general.
How did they regard Trump's meeting with Putin versus previous presidents?
Oh, awful. But that's because they can't control him.
That's right. So he's not one of them.
Yes, he is. He can't control him. If he wasn't one of them, right, and he wasn't part of the American state, right? Why did he go after Assange so much? And this is the thing. Now, remember on the campaign trail, WikiLeaks, etc. He not only did this is all through Trump, right? First of all, Bill Barr as Attorney General, right? Bill Barr then went after Assange. Bill Barr's dad gave Jeffrey Epstein his first job at a school. Okay. Now, obviously, Trump knows this. Trump knows this happens. Trump also knew there was no hack on the DNC. He knows this. So he was right to talk about that. However, the guy who could prove it, Bill Binney, had a meeting with Trump, and Trump ignored him after that. Bill Binney proved that, it couldn't have been Russia that did this. Bill Binney, one of the smartest NSA men there is. And that, he obviously pushed back on that a hell of a lot. But then, what do you know? He surveilled Assange in the embassy 24/7 unconstitutionally. So you say he protects the Constitution then?
No, I said with regards to how he handled COVID, right?
With way he handled COVID, but I'm saying he's unconstitutional in other ways as well. So he spied on Assange. He got Pompeo to label him as a non-state hostile intelligence agency. They piled all the 18. It was under Trump that he piled the extra 17 charges, of which, including in those charges, are reports that Siggy the hacker was asked by Assange to hack the embassy. This is a known pedophile and fraudster that conned the FBI into giving him immunity for lies about this. This is all under Trump. You know, he went after Assange. He was dragged out the embassy because of Trump. It's Trump that went after Assange. So why is he doing that? If he's so anti-establishment, he's not, mate.
Hold on, Gordon. Hold on. He's not perfect, and I can't answer that. I can only speculate, right? That's all I can do, right? I don't know. However, I know that when Iran attacked or destroyed an American drone that allegedly flew into Iranian airspace, the neocons wanted him to bomb Iran. He refused. He said, I'm not going to go and kill innocent people because they destroyed a machine. I know that, right? Now, there are things that he did for which they are out to get him. I know Trump, he went out of his way to negotiate with North Korea, to work something out with North Korea. At the same time, I think it was Bolton he sent somewhere else to deal with. He said, I'm not having you here. Because I think he was badly advised. I think he was captured. I think they did whatever they could to manipulate him. I think Bill Barr is deep state. I think John Durham is deep state.
John Durham needs to go to prison.
But John Durham looks like he isn't. I don't know why Trump didn't just pardon Assange. I wish he had done. I wish he'd pardoned Snowden.
Exactly.
Right? I wish he'd pardoned Chelsea Manning.
Exactly. Right? He didn't just do nothing with Chelsea Manning. He imprisoned her for over a year and charged her $1,000 a day because she wouldn't lie about Assange. That was Trump.
Yep.
How can anybody say that Trump is on our side? He's not. He's on his own side, Trump is. He's in the establishment. They can't control him, but he's not on our side. He's not doing anything for us. I tell you, he's not. He's
what I said was, I prefer him. I would rather him than Biden. Who I would really, really want, and I think you would. I would rather him than Biden. Much. I would rather Trump than Biden.
I wouldn't vote Democrat in a million years for the same reason I wouldn't vote Labour.
Sure. Who I would really, really want, which I think is very interesting, Tulsi Gabbard. And her leaving
the Democratic Party. You'll get me into trouble, mate. You'll get me into trouble bringing her name up.
She has a YouTube channel. Her leaving the Democratic Party and endorsing Carrie Lake, a Republican. Very interesting. I don't know if you've seen any of
my friend Steve in America thinks that she's gonna join the Republicans in about 18 months and run for president. She think because everybody was like, "Oh yeah, you left the Democrats, you're just going to join the Republicans," and she was very careful in the way she worded it. She was on Joe Rogan recently, and I watched that. And she was talking about it on there. That's where she announced she was leaving the Democratic Party, and she was very careful. She didn't rule out joining the Republicans, so that's going to happen in the next year or so.
Well,
and when she does, I'm going to be so disappointed. She knows you can't run as an independent in the United States, and the reason
there's no money.
If you think that you can look at what they did to Ross Perot. The two parties ganged up on him, and she cites Ross Perot as the reason. You've got to run for one of those two parties the way it is in America. You can't.
However, what she could do is run as a unity candidate, as a VP to DeSantis and possibly even Trump.
Trump doesn't need her. I don't think Trump will come back. I don't think Trump will be back. They're going to make it so he can't. They're going to somehow use Alex Jones as a precedent of doing it as well.
That was horrific. What they did to Alex Jones.
It's awful, isn't it, mate?
Absolutely horrific.
You and I are not right wingers, by the way, are we?
No, we just want. I'd like the rule of law. I'd like when somebody is charged with something, they're able to present their own defense. With Alex Jones, wasn't allowed to do. He wasn't allowed to plead not guilty. That's a kangaroo court. I'd like the United States or any government to be run like a proper, accountable administration and not like the Soviet Union. That's what I'd like.
Yeah, and if you know the liberals, I hate them. mate. I really do, with a passion. Because liberals are the goddamn worst, man. It's like,
Wait, do you mean the middle class Guardianistas?
yeah, the Guardian,
in
the
London
George
tell us,
Monbiot,
who
the Owen
tell,
Jones,
oh,
the
wait,
Aaron Bastanis, these
yeah,
people.
but you know what I say, right? And and I'm one of these, right? I'm one of these. I don't think you are, right? But what we have, I mean, certainly in social work, and certainly in the media, and those that are angling for Remain, are middle class twits.
Yeah.
Like myself, drive a Prius, semi-detached, house with solar panels, social worker, government job, telling the hoi polloi in the hinterland what is good for them.
They're the worst, mate. These people are these are the people that are, the liberals are the ones that are trying to go for Alex Jones right now, aren't they? It's the liberal media that are attacking Alex Jones. First of all,
but they're the puppets. They're the
liberals
puppets.
are the first people who are like, when somebody does something wrong and they want to defend them, they were like, hold on a minute, wait a minute. He's got alcohol problems and he's got some mental health problems, so perhaps we should give him a break, right? No, not with Alex Jones. Alex Jones is somebody who has self-confessed mental health problems and huge alcohol problems, especially when he said what he said about Sandy Hook, right? But let's look at what he said.
But even
he said
he's
dead kids weren't dead. He said, I don't think those dead.
First Amendment. Say what you like.
Exactly. You either believe in free speech or you don't, first of all. But you've gone after him for saying dead kids aren't dead. Hold on a minute. Hasn't he apologized profusely ever since?
He wasn't allowed to say that. He wasn't allowed to say.
But ever since, he's apologized, hasn't he?
No, but in the court case, he wasn't allowed to say, to bring evidence in his defense.
And the liberals are cheering that on. The liberals are cheering because it's Alex Jones and that.
But no, but also
Alex Jones
presented in the media, the Guardian, the New York Times, they will obscure all of that. We don't have good analytical media anymore. No. What we have are propaganda sheets masquerading as analysis.
But when you think of what he did, all he did was say that dead kids weren't dead, right? That's basically the upshot of what he said. And the liberals say that this caused extreme problems, and that's why they're talking about it non-stop, and Alex Jones must be punished. These liberals who are calling for Alex Jones to be punished for saying something that is protected by the First Amendment in the United States are saying nothing, absolutely nothing. They're not asking any questions at all. They're not making any tweets about the children who were raped on Epstein's Island by all those rich people. They're not asking any questions about those children at all. But they care so much about the families of dead children that Alex Jones wrongly said were dead and apologized for profusely ever since. Do you see how the false
it's hypocrisy? I can't believe the hypocrisy that's ignored. So they don't care about the families of the dead children killed by that smooth talking assassin Obama. No. They don't care about the lies of Tony Blair. They don't care about all the
million Iraqis
dead, right? No. Alex Jones says something hurtful, and therefore if he's got to pay $1 billion fine for that, how much should Tony Blair pay?
Exactly. How much do the people who spread the lies on the weapons of mass destruction, how much are the people that spread the lies that the vaccine stopped transmission?
Yes. Oh, I don't know.
Those lies are still up on YouTube right now.
But I don't know if that was in the Guardian or the BBC and stuff, right? The Pfizer executive saying, no, we didn't test for transmissibility. So all this stuff about the vaccine passes, all this stuff about like you have to have injected so that you don't kill Granny. Meanwhile, Granny's going to freeze this year because of the suicidal self-harming that Europe is doing to its own people, right? The abusive sanctions against its own people. Millions of grannies going to die this winter, and next winter as well, by the way. It's going to be even worse in 2020, coming into 2024. So nothing about that. But so it is a little bit like, my kid's never been to school.
Yeah.
Right. So it is, and I see it as a social worker going into schools. I see how children are, how coddled and controlled they are, how managed they are, how molded and melded they are. So they all become one. So now you have you know, what is it? The NPCs going for the latest thing. First, it was lockdowns and masks.
Yeah.
Even though Deborah Birx, the federal advisor for lockdowns and masks and how the US was going to deal with COVID, she acknowledged in her book, we made it all up. Not on the BBC or the Guardian. You won't find it there. They made it all up, right? So, but they followed that. Let's go. And I did for a while, just a couple of months, and that was it. I had enough of that BS, right? And then no, the vaccines are safe and effective, safe and effective, safe and effective, safe and 95% safe and effective. Oh, Pfizer's data, which is publicly available, shows that it was 12% effective for the first week only, and then less than 3% effective for every week afterwards. What about the lies about that?
I know.
So many lies. Oh, how much is Pfizer going to pay?
Just to put an exclamation point on my "I hate liberals" rant. Have you noticed liberals, by the way? And this is aside from everything, but this you mentioned hypocrisy there. What I try and do, and I'm sure you're the same, Rich, is if I believe in something, I try to apply that no matter who I'm applying it to, whether it's somebody I like or somebody I like.
Anti-hypocritical, xenophobic white supremacists.
Liberals will say, they will openly say on Twitter and what have you can't call Caitlyn Jenner Bruce, that's dead naming, that's a hate crime, right? But you bring up Tommy Robinson's name and they'll be the first one in the comments going, oh, you mean Stephen Yaxley Lemon?
Oh my God.
That's how disgusting these people are. They are not principled. They will go wherever the wind is blowing.
No. I disagree.
Whatever keeps them safe in their nice little cul-de-sacs with their Priuses and away from everybody else.
No, as long as we vote Remain, we have a referendum, and so they can have their cheap plumbers and their cheap nannies, right? And their cheap.
That's what it is,
right? But no. I disagree with you, because those that are the Russia-phobes who want us to keep supporting Ukraine agree with you and I that it's wrong for war, it's wrong for one nation to invade another nation and occupy a third of that territory and steal that country's grain and steal that country's oil, just like the United States is doing in Syria. Which is why they talk so much about Syria as well.
I think they're silent, aren't they, mate?
Have I got something wrong here? Have I got
There's a bit of a problem there.
Okay.
I mean, you're absolutely right. The United States, these liberals know the United States is occupying a third of Syria, and it's the.
I don't know. I don't think they do know. I don't think they do know.
No, I'm sure they do. Alan Bastani and what have you, they know. The
swallow.
liberal commentators know, they're just ignoring it because it doesn't fit whatever they're pushing for. And by the way, you're talking about the I saw somebody with a mask, right, on Twitter, a picture of somebody with a mask in the Ukrainian flag, and somebody wrote on top, when you're trying to get into the new psyop, but you can't quite get over the last one.
Oh God! Now, have you not noticed all the Yemenis flags?
I know the Yemeni flags are everywhere.
All the flags for Syria,
because,
for the Syrian people and for the Palestinian people.
I am noticing Palestinian flags a lot more, mate.
Oh, good.
I will say that.
People are waking up. I do think people are waking up. I'm finding it easy to talk to people about the WF and the Great Reset. I think people are more receptive, also about the injections. And the thing I think is happening is people don't question. School kills people's ability to question. And what happens is people just think the BBC, the Guardian, the Telegraph, what they say is true. What they say is true. We should just do as our leaders tell us. And that's why I think it happened. People got tricked, misled, manipulated into taking these poisonous toxins, acting out of fear, believing what the mainstream media was telling them. And I don't know if I mentioned this to you last time, right? And we are going to have to wrap this up soon, Gordon, right? I went to Pakistan in June this year. I couldn't go beforehand because Pakistan practices medical apartheid. My father died in February, and I knew for weeks beforehand he was going. And the only way I could get in was if I can get a medical exemption, or if I can get, or if I was going to have 2 injections. I wasn't going to have the injections. I'm like, I got to stay alive for my children. I'm not going to have them. Not going to have them. I spoke to my GP. I spoke to 7 other doctors. none of them would give me an exemption on medical grounds, on the grounds of consent, that I have the right, my body, my choice, that is enshrined in case law, in common law. I get to say yes or nay to any medical treatment, right? So the 8th doctor gave me an exemption, but by now it was like June, I got into Pakistan. My father had passed away, and virtually all of my family in Pakistan have had at least one injection, because it got to the point they couldn't buy petrol without it, right? That, you know, one of my cousins, he didn't want it, in his 30s, works out, bulky, strong, healthy, doesn't catch ill. He said my employer was going to cut my salary. I had to have it. So I'm talking to a couple of my cousins and my aunts about it, and they said to me, we don't trust the West. We don't trust Western corporations. We know what they've done to us. We know what they do to people. We didn't want to have it. We were forced, compelled, manipulated, tricked. It really was. You couldn't live. And I think what's missing, which the labor movement wants to create, is a sense of internationalism between the working class and even the middle class in the West with those in the East, against this corporate, elitist, oligarchical power that doesn't care about us. They are lying to us. They lie and they lie and they lie. And what there is for us to do is to keep waking up. Just subscribe to Gordon's channel, subscribe to my channel. Don't believe what we say. Go check it out for yourself. Go to phmpt.org and look up the Pfizer trial data yourself. Get different points of view on something, because there's so much that the mainstream media miss out deliberately, I think.
And also listen to people who are talking to you nicely about what's going on in the world. I had an interaction with somebody on Twitter recently. I put up a video about Julian, and his response to it was, Russia started this whole shit show in Ukraine. And I've responded to him by explaining, no, that's really not the case. There were 14,000 people killed in the Donbass region in fighting since 2014.
Yeah,
they were being shelled by the Ukrainians. These are Russian-speaking Ukrainians, Russian speakers in Ukraine. And they, like 14,000, mostly Russian-speaking Ukrainians were killed. Ukraine would not implement the Minsk agreements, which the international community had decided was the way forward. They wouldn't do it. The United States were obviously forcing them to poke the bear to instigate this attack. I want to show you this for the people watching, because they probably won't have seen this. But this is from the OSCE. This is the ceasefire violations observed by the SMM from 21st of February 2022. You can see here, all of these are inside the Donbass territory. Yeah, most of them. Look at this. On February the 16th, there were 76 violations. Now, remember, the media was saying for 100 days before this, Russia is going to invade. And there's these violations of the Minsk agreements, these shelling of the Donbass region by the Ukrainians all throughout this period. February the 16th, there were 76 violations, meaning 76 bombs were dropped on that side. Then it went to 316. Then it went to 654 on the 18th. Then it went to 1,413 on the 19th. On the February 20th and 21st, there was over 1,000 each day. And then 1,484 four shells fell on the 22nd. And on the 24th, Russia invades Ukraine. Now,
that's a provocation.
That's pretty...
Poke the bear.
That's to say that's an unprovoked invasion. I'm sorry. If you believe that, I've got a bridge to show. I showed that somebody on Twitter, and they responded with, that's Russian propaganda.
Oh, that's the other one. We're white supremacists, xenophobic, Brexiteers, anti-vaxxer conspiracy deniers or conspiracy theorists, climate change. We're Putin's puppets as well because we want peace. Just like Elon Musk. He wants peace.
In response to him saying that, I said, no, it's not propaganda. This goes back to 2014. I explained 14,000 people killed in the Donbass region, Ukraine, under US influence. After the Maidan coup in 2014, aided the suffering by refusing to implement the Minsk Accords, right? And please take this into consideration. And his replied was, Russia started that too. No, Russia didn't start that. America started it. There's a tape of Victoria Nuland saying Yats is the guy, basically saying the United States have forced this guy into the position of power. Yats is the guy, fuck the EU. That's what Victoria Nuland said on tape. And his response to me to that was, I don't care if you believe Roger Stone, Russian propaganda. Russia invaded Crimea.
Wow.
That is like, that's what we're up against. These are facts I'm talking about here. Cast iron facts that somebody is literally just going, la, 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 la. And this is what the media have done to them. They've created absolute zombie morons who were just going around going Russia propaganda. They couldn't point to Ukraine on a map, but they think they know everything about it.
Schooling system. It begins at school.
Yeah. Don't question things.
Put your hand down. Put your hand down, Gordon. We're not taking questions now.
Stop. I agree, mate. I agree. By
Gordon, the way, Gordon, on the positive side, right? The Great Reset, this agenda will fail. We have cryptocurrencies. We are offering us a way out in terms of decentralization. We have gold and silver. Go get some now, right?
Yeah.
For people. And people are waking up. The injections are waking people up. What's happened with that? We have 17% excess deaths in the UK over the last 5-year average. 17% excess, almost a fifth. Is there a war going on in Britain? Do we have do we have the bubonic plague raging through Britain?
There was a guy in, I think it was the African Parliament, who held up, or was it the European Union? I can't remember, but he held up a graph of where these excess deaths are in the world. Like the red areas are the ones that have been highly vaccinated.
Yeah, and then I'm noticing on a personal level, friends of friends, my friends, in fact, they're all going to funerals. Everybody seems to be attending a funeral. Nowadays, loads and loads of funerals taking place. Now, that's anecdotal, but it would fit. It's what, you know, when you have 17% increase in excess deaths. And I think people are waking up. We are being lied to. Now, Gordon, I have loved doing this, right? I did say, by the way, this is not to Gordon, but this is to everybody who's watching. Gordon is a bad man. I said to him when we started, let's do this for an hour, right? And now it's gone on. It's been really, really enjoyable.
I love talking to you, Rich.
It's
we
really,
don't
really
agree
good.
on everything. That's the thing.
No,
and I love talking to you. Yeah, I love it.
It's not personal. We don't cancel each other.
I love talking to you, and I love having these conversations. I love having conversations with people I can talk to who I don't agree with. We need more of it.
Yeah.
I'm fed up of talking to people who agree with me on everything. It's so boring. It's like talking to an echo chamber. We've got to get out of our bubbles, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. And you and I do need to talk about climate change, and I'll tell you a few things.
Yeah, next time we'll schedule it in for we'll do it once a month, mate. We'll do this chat once a month. Yep. If you want to do that, I would love to. I really would, because I enjoy talking to you about these things, and you're a highly educated person. And yeah, you do your own research, and I love that. I can't stand people who are like, oh yeah, you do your own research, do you? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
What are you, in charge of your own body and choices? Oh, Gordon, thank you so much.
Thanks so much,
everybody.
Mate.
Thank you. Please follow us on Twitter, CryptoRichYT, and at Gordon Dimmack. And then also subscribe to our channels. Gordon is a superstar on TikTok. So follow him there. And there you go.
Thanks, everybody.
I just want to say, I might get some comments about crypto being a Ponzi and stuff like that. If you think Bitcoin is a Ponzi, right, please or crypto is a Ponzi, please go and do some research.
I was going to say, if you think Bitcoin's a Ponzi, I'd like to talk to you about the stock market.
Yes, or no, fiat currency, fractional
I'd
reserve
like
banking.
I'd like to talk to you about, because Bitcoin is not. Okay.
Gold is not a Ponzi. Silver is not a Ponzi. Right. So go check it out. All right. All right. Thank you so much. All the best. Bye bye.
Cheers, Rich.